If you love the look of multicolored stenciled backgrounds, then this video is for you. Hi everyone, I'm Rebecca Keppel, and you may remember recently I shared a Waffle Flower video with their Shader Plus brushes. They had the Shader 0 Plus and the Shader 1 Plus, and I explained how those Plus brushes really make it easy to get lots of color down and to multicolor stenciled background. So today I am sharing the Waffle Flower Shader Plus 2 brushes and Shader Plus 3 brushes. And those, again, just like the other 0 Plus and 1 Plus, make it really easy to get lots of color down onto your stencils, and they're small enough to make multicolor stenciling very easy. So first, let's take a quick peek at those new Shader Plus brushes and how they work. Starting with the Shader 2 Plus brushes, you get 15 brushes in this pack. They are a 1/4 inch flat brush, and you can see they are the perfect size for getting into small areas, but they are a nice condensed soft brush that will allow you to get lots of color down into those small areas very quickly. Next up is the Shader 3 Plus brushes. There are 5 in this pack. You can see they are a larger size, and those will be for your slightly larger elements on your stencil to get a bunch of ink down quickly and easily. So there's also this month a sample pack that is one of each of the single-sided shader brushes. Don't forget that at Waffle Flower you can also get double-sided shader brushes in the 1 Plus size. This is the pop-up books panel. Waffle Flower has tons of pop-up dies. They're so much fun to create a dimensional element. These are the two-tone books stencils. So there's 2 stencils. One is for the pages of the books, and one is for the shadow or the drop shadow on that book. This is the simple shelves die, which creates either a bookshelf or can cut out books that I'll show you you can stencil individually later. Here is that simple book stencil, and you can see it fits right in there. There's also the simple shelves duo stencil and the simple books sentiments stamp set for great sentiments to match with these supplies. Now let's use some of those new Shader Plus brushes along with some of the new Waffle Flower November release to create some cards. So first, I'll use an A2 piece of white cardstock and the Waffle Flower Pop-Up Books panel die. And basically, I'll just tape this piece of cardstock in place because it's already A2. So the rectangle will still cut out. I'll make sure the cardstock is right inside those cut lines. Then I'll place it down on my 6x6 Waffle Flower grip mat, and then place the first layered stencil right on top and line it up with those books so that you can see both pages on the inside. So it's like the book is open towards the middle. There's the left-hand side and the right-hand side. And I am using the Shader Plus brush in the 3 Plus size. And basically, I'm starting at the center of the book and flicking the ink from the center to the outside. So the darkest part of the ink here will be in the center of the book. I'm using Distress Oxide Salvaged Patina, and I'm coloring in every other book in that color. And then I'll take a different Shader Plus 3 brush and I'll blend with Kitsch Flamingo. Many of you know this is one of my favorite color combinations, Kitsch Flamingo and Salvaged Patina. I think they look great together, and it's a nice fresh color combination, something a little bit different for books, which I tend to think of as being old books and brown. I really wanted this to be a bright, happy color combination. So then I'll take Broken China, and this time I'm using the 2 Plus brush because you can see the edge or the drop shadow here or the hardcover part of the book that is sticking out is really only a slim part around that major image of the center pages. So you don't need a huge brush. You need kind of a smaller brush to just blend these out without covering your entire stencil in one color of cardstock. This is how you get to do this multicolor stenciling and keep that ink to just where you want it. The great thing about the pop-up panel dies is that you can fold them towards the center of each image. So I'm just folding the pages up towards the center, and that gives that pop-up look or three-dimensional look without even adding three-dimensional adhesive. I'm actually going to use some liquid adhesive here. I have my Sweet Petunia precision glue press, which I love to use on things like this, so I can get a little bit of that liquid adhesive everywhere, and I'm adhering it down to some silver glitter cardstock. For the die cut sentiments from Waffle Flower, I am placing a little bit of liquid glue on one part of the left hand bottom page and then the right hand upper page, so that I can have that little sentiment strip sit right on the popped up book. Of course, this would not go through the mail and stay popped up, but if you hand deliver this card, it would look absolutely fantastic. For the next card, I'm using my Simple Shelves Duo stencil, and the first stencil has several different items. You can see that there's 3 or 4 different rows, and each of them has a bunch of different things on it, like a little vase, some books. There's actually 4 rows because that will make sense later when we die cut the shelves. But for now, I'm coloring in these small little images, and that's why these smaller shader brushes really come in handy for this type of multicolor stenciling. So this is not something like I want to put polka dots on the entire background of my card. No, this is for smaller images, little parts of flowers, things like that. And you'll find that those big brushes are just too much to get into those smaller spaces. So these smaller brushes are just what you need. And the plus of the shader brush is that it holds more ink and puts more ink down more quickly. The original shader brushes were more for building up color with layer upon layer, whereas these guys, these plus brushes, really put down a bunch of opaque color very quickly. So just depends on the look that you're going for here. I wanted to have this multicolor background. Just check that out. Such a fun color combination. And I grabbed one of the sentiment stamps to stamp a birthday sentiment. It says this birthday will be one for the books. Then I cut out the Simple Shelves die, and I cut it out of kind of a light coral cardstock that would match with the vase and some of the books that I've stenciled on the background. So I'll put a little bit of liquid glue all around each of those shelves, and then I'll lay this down, just making sure that each of my shelves lines up with the bottoms of each of my images. Now, of course, my cardstock might be a little bit off in the back there, so I'll just trim off those little strips of white that showed through, and then you have this adorable birthday card for somebody who loves books. This would be a perfect one for me for sure. I am now cutting out the Simple Shelves die, only instead of using the shelf, the background, I'm using the individual pieces to create larger looking books. I'll start with the Waffle Flower blender brushes because now I want the entire thing covered with ink. I want it light, so I'm doing a little bit at a time, building up color to make sure it is the color that I want. Not too dark, not too light. I have this die cut down on the grip mat. That is a great way to color die cuts without them skidding around your surface. Next, I'll take that book stencil, and it has different decorations for the spines of books. And you'll see when you see the stencil up close, there are lines around each book on the stencil to show you where to place it to line everything up perfectly. My first book was a combination of different colors of pink. So for this book, I'm using a combination of several blues. I have Salvaged Patina here for the background. Again, using a blender brush for the background and then lining up the stencil. You can see sort of in the camera, but it's easier to see in person. There are little lines all around each of those books to show you exactly where to line it up, which makes it so simple to add these little spine decorations. And again, When I have something that's small, like those little dots or lines, it's much easier to use a small shader brush than to try to put this big blender brush and not get it everywhere. I want each of these little designs to be a different color. So especially when I have a big open area, that's when I'm using my blender brushes. But when I have these smaller decorative areas, or like I mentioned before, possibly parts of a flower, anything that's tinier than a big open space, these shader brushes come very in handy. I love using them with my Distress Oxides, and I definitely recommend using them with an ink that you like to ink blend with, or that you feel is creamy enough or smooth enough to blend with. And that is why I definitely use them with my Distress Oxide inks. They'll work with any ink, obviously, but you'll get the best impact if you have an ink that you already feel comfortable blending with. So here again, I have the die cut on that 6x6 grip mat, and it holds it in place while I put the color on the background. And then I line up the stencil and use the smaller shader brushes for these little detail areas in the center. There's a large part on this spine that I decided to use another one of the blender brushes with, but those shader brushes, like I mentioned, come in very handy for little teeny tiny dots like this on the spine that adds such nice decorative effects that it's nice to be able to use them with different colors so you get that multicolor background. Now I'll place the books in my mini Misti and stamp some sentiments on them. There's two that really had open spaces for stamping sentiments, so I used the sentiment stamp set to stamp a couple of those sentiments on there. Now I'm using some small foam squares from Spellbinders to pop up the books, so I'll put the outer books on first, and then I'll center that center book that says Your Tops in my book, and then just on top I'll lay the You're a Classic. I also have some Waffle Flower enamel dots. I thought those would be fun to add to some of those decorative areas, just as a little bit more dimension on top and a little bit of extra shine and some fun color combinations as well. So such an easy card to put together, but so much fun with all those different colors. You probably already know what a big fan of the Waffle Flower shader brushes that I am. I'd love to hear if these caught your eye this month. Let me know in the comments below. As always, I want to thank you so much for stopping by and spending time with me today. Please stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you again soon. I have no idea if I'm in focus, and yeah, I think so. I do have a hair in front of my face. I can't work under these conditions.